Vanguard Tactics, episode number 1. I'm your host, Stephen Box, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Mark Reed. How you doing, Mark?
Fine, thank you. Hello, Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year, mate. The launch in the podcast on the dawn of the 2019. What a great time.
Start of a great year.
Yeah, hopefully. So today I've brought Mark onto the show because I think Mark is going to really sum up and really put himself in the sort of hot seat, so to speak, or put me in the hot seat, so to speak. And I think Mark comes from a really interesting perspective, because I think Mark as a gamer is someone that you listening are just going to be able to relate to Mark. You know, Mark has been playing now for, about 18 months?
Yeah, 18 months, 2 years, I think, back into the hobby.
Yeah. And, you recently started sort of playing on the tournament scene, probably 6 months ago?
Yeah, about that, yeah.
So I think for me, Mark is someone that obviously not only is a great friend of mine, but also someone that is at that level where he wants to improve his performance at the tournaments. He's gone from being a club player to a tournament player, and ultimately we're just trying to break you in now into the sort of top half of the tournaments, aren't we? Into the sort of top half of the leaderboard, so to speak.
Yeah, that's right. I think that anybody will who's been in the same situation or is coming into the same situation can understand that you can end up being a very highly rated club player and going undefeated, and then going into a tournament circuit, it can be very challenging. So one thing that we've been working on over the past 6 months or so is what does it take to improve to get to that next level?
Yeah. And also, I think the first fear is even actually entering the tournament, isn't it?
Yeah, sure. You know, there's a lot of hints and tips that we can hopefully give to people over the coming weeks with these podcasts to try and make that smooth the transition for them, trying to raise their game. You know, from my perspective, and maybe from yours as well, as a veteran of several tournaments and a high-ranking individual. You know, we can really give the guys something that they can take to their tournaments and improve themselves. That's
it, because I think if, for me, the whole purpose of this podcast is to really, and my, the YouTube channel, the website, the Patreon page, everything is geared towards just raising the game, isn't it? Raising the player game, should I say. In what I want it to really do as well is be an absolute sort of beacon and sort of shining light for sportsmanship in the game of 40k.
Yeah, sounds great. I think that I hope that people will get a lot out of that.
No, hopefully. So, Mark, what I think would be great, and is obviously you and I spoke offline and things, but I want to hand the show over to you today, because I think I find it really difficult just to say, oh, I did this and I did this competition, but I think it'd be really cool to hand over the sort of the interviewer role over to you today, and that way then people can find out a little bit more about me, what I've done, where I want to take things, where I want to go, and ultimately, share some of the little bit of knowledge that I have about the game.
Sure. So I hopefully I'm going to ask the right questions from the listener's perspective, the stuff that they might want to hear, and then we'll also welcome any other questions people have got. If you want to drop us a line, get in touch, and then in future podcasts we'll be able to pick Steve's brains.
Yeah, and what I've done today, actually, Mark, is I've just posted on my Patreon page, which is Vanguard Tactics. If any of those guys had any questions for today, I probably should have done it sooner, as obviously you and I sort of come together, thought, let's get our first episode done. But I think for next week, I'm going to get all questions through that Patreon page, which if you are interested in supporting the podcast, that is the best place to go.
Okay, sounds great. So I have a question straight off the bat for you.
Yes, mate.
You have recently spiraled into the spotlight through a devastating defeat of Lawrence from Tabletop Tactics in the fifth and final game of the one of the heats, the final heat for the GT, Games Workshop GT, at the home of Warhammer itself in Nottingham. And I think that I would be interested to know, maybe people would be interested to know, about that list and about how you came up with the list, because it really came out of left field. Nobody's really competitively playing Deathwatch. Maybe now a few more are, after they've seen you in that game and seen you do so well with it. I've been terrorised by it a couple of times already. So interested to know more about it from your perspective.
Yeah, obviously, it was an absolute whirlwind of a tournament, and probably the most enjoyable tournament I think I've ever gone to. And I think I went in with no expectations, because I knew I was taking a list that I've never seen before. It was completely unique. I've never seen it at a tournament before. No one talks about this, and I thought, like you said, it was quite out of left field. But my motto is I suppose it all came about really because in the game of 40k, now and you can sort of exacerbate this to whatever level. So if you're at home and you only play against a couple of mates in your garage, or in a spare room or whatever, or in the lounge like we play, you have what is called a meta. And that meta basically stands for the armies you typically play against. So, for example, if you take like my meta, where I play with, obviously, against yourself and Jack and Dan. In Jack and Dan, you guys will probably meet at some point on future podcasts. But obviously, Jack plays Tau, you play Dark Eldar, and Dan plays Necrons.
Yeah.
So I play in a sort of very general meta. And what I mean by that, the armies are very balanced. There's, it's not like you guys are playing 5 knights, and it's also not like you guys are playing 200 orcs. So
or 120 bloodletters.
Exactly. So it's very they're very sort of balanced armies. So therefore, I need to take a balanced list in order to do well against those. Whereas if let's say you were playing 200 orcs and Jack was playing 150 plague bearers, and then Dan was playing 120 cultists and a Baden, I would be playing in a very small but local horde meta.
Yeah, sure.
So you can then obviously exacerbate that to your club. So I know down at mine club in Bath, there's a lot of Space Marine players. So if anyone says to me, what do you face most, it's normally Space Marines. And then obviously the tournament scene, the meta's very different in the UK compared to what it is in Europe, and then even compared to America as well with the ITC. So how my list came about was looking at all of the current top lists in the tournament meta and then thinking, how do I beat those? Because normally, you can either hope to take one of the current meta lists and meta armies, like, for example, Ynnari performs extremely well. However, you are relying on a couple of things. Good matchups throughout the tournament, and you're also relying on being the best player with the best list, if that makes sense.
Sure it does, yeah.
So, with what I think, if you want to do well at a tournament, actually is to look at the meta and design a list that is very good against majority of what you think you're going to see. So I thought, well, Orc Codex is just dropped. Obviously, after the Knight Code, back when was it, like July or something, when the Knight Codex dropped, there was knights everywhere. So I thought, okay, there's going to be orcs everywhere. So I'm going to take an army that's very good at killing orcs. So the Deathwatch are great at that. They've got extremely high rate of firepower and also a stratagem that literally leaves orcs stood still with, just looking a bit silly. So I took a list that I thought would be really good against that. I also know with the stratagems that I have and some of the abilities that Deathwatch have, I would be very good against Eldar and Eldar flyers, because you see those all the time, like Shining Spears, for example. The only list I was really dreading was Knights, because my list isn't great against that. I had a couple of things to deal with it, but it's not like for example, an all or like a for example, I don't know, it's not like I've got melter guns everywhere or haywire cannons everywhere that are so good at killing knights. That's like the best matchup. So for me, that would have been one of my worst ones. But
so do you think that sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah,
so where knights are concerned, were you concerned about the Knights, Blood Angels, Loyal 32 list, or were you more worried about sort of 5 knights themselves?
Do you know, I wasn't worried about the sort of soup of Blood Angels and Guard and Knight, because I know that the Knight that I have is very good at killing a Knight.
Okay.
And I know that my Deathwatch are very good at killing everything else. What I was worried about was 5 Knights. But I also know they're very rare at competitions now. They've kind of had their day, I think. You see a couple, but not that many. You see more...
And yeah, maybe not into the sort of top end of the, 4 people who have won 4 games. Maybe you're not seeing 5 Knights at that, top tables towards the end of the tournament.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. You might get someone that's always played Knights, so they're maybe like a good club level player, and I think, well, if I play the mission well, I could still, win that mission. And obviously we can go on to that, because that's exactly what happened at the tournament. I couldn't believe it when I fought 5 Knights turned game 2, but yeah. So, yeah, I think, and obviously, like you said about, the game, like me and Lawrence had, game 5 was incredible. It was one of the most enjoyable games I've played. We had a wicked time, and also obviously because it was played on Warhammer Twitch stream and they basically went live with it, I think that's where obviously I came into the limelight a little bit, because I had such a... I don't think it was necessarily beating Lawrence, that was it. I think it was because it was a list out of left field. And I mean, obviously Lawrence is a fantastic player, and does an incredible job over at Tabletop Tactics. I know I subscribe, you subscribe, and most of our friends do as well. So he puts out an incredible amount of great content over there, very good player, and also has won a GT before. So he obviously knows exactly what he's doing. So, yeah, I think it may have helped a little bit, sort of advertise what I did in things. But generally, I think most people are interested in how did you do it with Deathwatch sort of thing. So, yeah.
I think that you are directly responsible for a percentage increase in Deathwatch sales for GW, since that game.
Do you know, I've had so many people, like literally a guy messaged me today on Instagram saying, you've really inspired me to start collecting Deathwatch.
Great. Good to see more Marines on the board.
Yeah, and I've had people sending me their lists, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm kind of doing something similar to you, and it's literally the exact same as my list. But it's brilliant. It is brilliant to see, to be fair. I did like being literally the only Deathwatch player on the tournament scene, but I'm actually really passionate about seeing the guys in black do well. So if the more I can help people get into playing Deathwatch, the better. So because they've got so many tricks, there's so many neat little combos. It's like they're like a Swiss Army knife. So they've literally got a tool for every job, which I really like.
I think they're a great. The infantry units are sensational.
Yeah,
you're putting in storm shields for the 3 up invulnerable saves. You've got Terminator for a no AP 2 up save.
Yeah.
You have the jetpack guy. So you got the fly keyword.
So you can fall back and shoot.
Yeah, all the storm bolters. They have come down in price as well after chapter approved, which must have been wonderful for you. Not so wonderful for me. Again, my Drukhari, but that's a different matter. But I think they're absolutely a fantastic unit. And then the ability to be able to, with Hellfire, wound on a 2 is just absolutely sensational.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like I said, there's so many tricks there. You've got a tool for every job. You can reroll wounds against certain things. You can use a stratagem to get +1 to wound against any sort of kind that you like. So if you're fighting against lots of troops, or for example a character or a knight, you can just basically say, look, +1 to wound on heavy support and sort of Lord of War options. So that's good. So yeah, they've got loads of tricks, and I just think they're really customizable as well, what you can do. They do lack in a few areas, and one of those is killing high armoured basically knights or vehicles. They do lack there. So that's why, as much as I'd love to run a pure Deathwatch army, it wouldn't have been possible at 1750 before chapter approved.
Yeah.
I think now it might be like, so I worked out that my 1750 list, based on chapter approved, I was playing with a 1600 point list.
I see, okay.
So I used literally a 1600 point list against, a lot of 1750 point lists. Because most of the lists that I played against didn't drop in price. So I know that now I get an extra 150 points to put back into my list at 1750. That starts to make pure Deathwatch a little bit more competitive. And I've started to play around with a few ideas how I can take that up to a full 2,000 point, because most of the tournaments that I do are mainly ETC, and also I'm going to be doing a few ITC missions this year. So they're going to, or tournaments should I say, so they're going to be at 2,000 points. It's only the Warhammer World GT that is at 1750.
1750, yeah, sure. So with the final coming up this year, because obviously that was the heat which we got through.
Yeah.
You'll be facing some stiff opposition. I won't ask you to reveal everything because maybe you don't know it yourself yet. But I'm sure you've got a few tricks up your sleeves. But are you looking to take the Deathwatch to the final, or will you rely on your old buddies Yannari to try and get you that win?
Well, I do like my Yannari because I think it's quite unique with the Harlequins in the Incarn that I run. It's very different to what you typically see with just Reapers in Yvraine, or the Cat Lady, should I say. So it's a little bit different. It is quite cool and quirky, and again, it's got loads of tricks that nobody sees coming, which I like. I do think, though, I will probably take Deathwatch just because I enjoy playing with them so much at the moment. And I know that if I continue to do so, I'm only going to get better with them. So it's kind of like I've got a head start, really, on all the other kind of Deathwatch players on the tournament scene now. I don't know if people are aware, but I'm involved with the England sort of training team for the ETC, and I know a few of those boys now are trying out Deathwatch as well, so it's quite nice to kind of be ahead of the curve a little bit there. And yeah, so again, it just gives me, the more practice I can get with the list, the better I'm going to be with it, and I think that's one of my massive points in tips to anyone that's looking to take an army to a tournament, is to practice your list time and time again. And we should probably do an episode, mate, actually, on what you should do if you're going to think about doing a tournament.
Yeah, sounds like a good idea. I think there's a few things we've discussed between ourselves, One good tip we'll give you straight off the bat is try not to paint your entire army on the Friday night before you go on a Saturday morning. Something that we've both not followed that great advice.
Yeah.
And then have a nice stress-free Friday relaxing evening with a couple of beers and an early night perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a great idea. I think that your feedback to any of the listeners, for trying out their new to tournaments, or even if they've been to go into some tournaments and looking to improve, I think it'd be definitely worthwhile. Yeah,
definitely. So yeah, I think I'll go Deathwatch. What I'm going to take in, obviously I've got that 1600 point base now. I don't know what I'm going to put in for the extra 150 points, but I'm sure I'll have a little play over the next few weeks. And the great thing is, because I've got loads of 2,000 point tournaments coming up, I can run basically 400 points extra to the sort of standard bit I know I'm going to take.
Yeah.
And then I can start to analyse after each game, after each tournament, what's probably working for me in the new mission pack that is chapter approved as well, because that's what the missions I'll be playing, I can only assume. So, yeah.
Sounds great. So when you get to the final, what do you think you'll be facing? What is what do you think the GT meta in the UK the final will be like?
Yes, good question. I think from what I've seen, the meta at the grand tournaments that Warhammer World run is different to the ETC. their meta is very different, I think, to what we see at, for example, the GW heats. And yeah, it stands for the European Team Championships.
There you go.
European Team Championships. That's what it stands for. The ITC we can talk about at another point, but that stands for something slightly different. So just to give a quick synopsis of the ETC that I spoke about, basically is a team event where you will play, for example, for England against France or Germany or whatever, and every player in your team is matched against one of the opposition. So the lists are very different because you can choose, in a way, who you want to play against. So the armies that we see are a little bit different and probably more extreme to what you might see at a regular sort of balanced tournament where you could literally face anything at any point. So I think at the GW heats, there were obviously the orcs there, so obviously they're going to be quite a big player. I think the reason why I didn't see as many as I expected was literally because it came a month after the tournament, came a month after the Orcs Codex released, and obviously to paint 200 orcs, to buy and paint 200 orcs is extremely time consuming. So I think more people that have potentially qualified over the year in Heat 1 or 2 might run orcs. So I think they're still going to be there because they're a very top tier list, and very balanced as a single codex, especially at 1750 points. I think we'll continue to see the like Castellan Knight with Imperial Guard, and also maybe Blood Angel Smash Captains.
Yeah.
Again, a very good list that's still very competitive, and again can easily be fit in at 1750 points. I think you also see there'll be a very strong Dakari element, because again at 1750 you can put out some very strong lists. And same for Eldar Ynnari. Probably not much Craft World, but more Ynnari lists as well. So I think for me, they're probably going to be the top 4 lists. Orcs, sort of Knight and Guard, and then Dakari and Craft. Ynnari are probably going to be the main players I think that I would expect to see. So I need to make sure that in my list I'm able to deal with all of those 4.
Yeah, I see.
And then, maybe even, I think Tau are going to be on the rise, based on chapter approved, and then also, what was I going to say? Nids as well, Tyrannids.
You think there's still a danger at the to get to the top table?
Yeah, you've got to be prepared to face Tyrannids, yeah. You've got to be able to kill what could be 100 Gene Stealers. And Hive Tyrants, because they're good. Yeah. Yeah,
especially if you, depending on the deployment you get, if you get the one with the quarters.
Well, yeah,
I can't remember the name of it.
Where you're only 18 inches apart.
Yeah, they're in your grill early doors, and they're not that easy for every army to be able to deal with. No,
definitely. So that is something, because they're just incredibly quick. They're troops as well, so a lot of the new missions can only be scored by troops. They've got board control. Any army now that's got board control is going to be really difficult to face. So, yeah. That
interesting.
Yeah. So it literally could depend. But again, there might be some left field lists like mine that are literally built to beat that meta. I don't think anyone will be tailoring to beat Deathwatch just yet. I don't think I've created that much of a hype for that meta shift just yet, so I think I might be safe for a while.
Sure, I suppose that it's possible though, because if there are many adopters of it and it starts to become more prevalent at tournaments, then it could be up there with those lists that you mentioned. Yeah,
there is a list that I've built that kills my list very quickly.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, which I sent out as a email to my on my newsletter to anyone that's subscribed on VanguardTactics.com. I've run a newsletter I did send out that list, and it is pretty disgusting. It literally goes through my list like butter.
Really? So maybe we'll see a few of those on the tables of tournaments around the world, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely.
So that It's been fair to say it's been a fair journey for you in a short time of coming back into the hobby, and then to progress from games, with friends to then really starting to get a taste for tournaments, and then starting to progress through tournaments to today being a person who people look to for some sage advice possibly on tactics and list building and things like this. So when did you come back into Warhammer, and did you ever leave?
Do you ever leave? That is the question. So basically I started playing again, well, it was with yourself, wasn't it? With Jack, with Dan, literally 2 years ago. We were scrabbling around, trying to play 7th edition, had the rulebook in one hand, probably 4 codexes in the other hand, and then trying to make a sort of sense of what we were trying to do with different formations and things, and none of us had a clue, did we?
Apart from, I have to say, Dan and Jack had been playing for a couple of years previous.
Yeah.
And I remember Dan running Necrons with Kieron, which was just disgusting.
Yeah.
I remember him playing a game against a friend of ours, MÁ~h who took Marines, and him saying, I probably won't run that again, just to be a bit nicer to you. It was absolutely horrible.
Yeah. After I think he maybe killed one model in a turn. Yeah. As it just all stood back up. So yeah, that was kind of when we got back into it. Then my first tournament was with you, wasn't it? I did the Warhammer Fest, which is kind of their big expo that they run, and it was the first tournament I'd done, because the last time I'd properly played 40k was back when I was about 15, 16. And then I didn't really know the rules that well. I just kind of dabbled, really. Played a lot more Lord of the Rings, actually. And I knew that sort of rule set a lot better. It's just a lot simpler at that age. But so did the Warhammer Fest, and I took a CAD of Eldar. I think I'd built the army in a month. Took it and came 17th, I think, out of 100. Won 3, lost 2.
Great start.
So that was the first one. And I remember at Warhammer Fest, I managed to play 8th edition for the first time. They had like a little test it out before its released day. And then ever since then, 8th edition dropped, and I was literally signing up to every tournament possible that I could. And then I think my first main one was in actually probably January last year. That was Battlefield Birmingham. And again, I took my Eldar, took loads of Dire Avengers, a Suruman, and I ended up coming 4th.
Out of that must be about a 100-man tournament.
Yeah, it's about a 100-man tournament.
Then, so that was a great achievement, because I played at the last one myself, and there's a tough competitive crowd there. There's no easy games. No,
and they play a combination of Eternal War and Maelstrom, very much like the ETC style. So it's really cool. So I did that. Came 4th at that one. I then did one in January as well at Warhammer World, which was kind of like a more narrative one, and I met a really great bunch of guys there, so I'm actually going to do that one again this year. It's quite cool. The emphasis isn't on competitive play, but some of the players that go are still they're like very good club level players, I would say.
Sure.
So it's going to be perfect for me just to sort of chat to other gamers, and also hopefully maybe get some more listeners to Vanguard Tactics. But
yeah, sounds good. So
I did that one, and I came home with Best General. And that was another 100-man tournament, because I went 5-0. Then did Battlefield Birmingham, came 4th. Me and Jack did a doubles tournament, and we went undefeated at that tournament, so that was good at Warhammer World again. And then, what else did I do last year? So then I did the LGT, and I ended up with a really bad matchup. So I took my Eldar, and I had a wicked first 3 games, and one of those games was against Jeff Robinson.
Of Team America fame, ETC.
Yep, and also he is, In Control, on his YouTube, and is one of the co-hosts, I think, of Chapter Tactics, isn't he, podcast?
Yeah, that's the one from Frontline Gaming.
So we had a wicked game, and he'd literally just won the invitational event. In the invitational event at the LGT, you can only play in if you are invited to play, basically. So that's really cool that I played against him. We had an amazing game, and I tell you what, I've never learned so much about the game of 40k in one single game. And he just said to me at the start, he goes, look, I really want to take this to turn 7 if you're happy to. And I said, yep, love that. And he goes, look, I play by the book and I like to play like fairly. And I was like, do you know what? Perfect. This is exactly how I like to play. Me and Jeff had possibly one of the closest fought games I've ever played. It literally went to turn 7, and I won just at the end. And I think I got quite a big victory by the time we sort of stacked up all the points. And he did say to me, it's one of the first games I've ever lost but enjoyed. So, yeah, and me and Jeff have actually stayed very, very sort of good friends, I would say, across social media, and we chat quite a lot. So I'm really looking forward to catching up with Jeff again at the LGT. But then what happened was I ended up playing against 3 Storm Surges.
I say, okay.
And he went first. Oh, and all the other Tau flying things. He went first and literally nearly tabled me in a turn. It's just a dreadful matchup. In one of those lists that you never see anymore, just because of the mission pack, and also the terrain wasn't great at the point for me. It was deployment map went against me. I went second. And yeah, it was just kind of game over before it started, really. So yeah, that was kind of the end to my good run at the LGT. And then what else have I done? Then I went over to Croatia and played in the ETC singles event, because I went along with Glasshammer Gaming, who sort of asked me to commentate on the stream, which was really cool, really good experience. Met some really good guys out over there. For example, like Nick Nadavati, and watching these guys play live was fantastic. And again, playing against these guys that are competing week in, week out for their country. And I think I went 3 and 3, but one of those games I had to pull out just because of sickness. Basically, I really wasn't well, so unfortunately I had to concede one of my games. But that was a really good experience. And yeah. And done a couple of others, had another couple of top 10 places at another couple of events, came second at another, and yeah, looking forward now to what 2019 is going to bring.
Yeah, so that segues us brilliantly onto the coming year. So you've given us a real feel for the getting back into Warhammer and your passion for it, and the events that you've been through. So. What is upcoming in 2019? What are you excited for 2019 for yourself and Vanguard Tactics?
So what I got coming up, I've got the Warhammer World event in a couple of weekends time. Then doing the ITC style format with you, mate, aren't we?
Yeah, the Greetings from the Warp, War in the Warp tournament at the end of January.
Is that 1 day or 2 days?
2 days ITC format.
Yeah, nice. So I'm looking forward to that. That'll be my first proper ITC style tournament. Then I'm doing the Glasshammer Open, obviously as a I've luckily been sponsored by Glasshammer. Is one of their sponsored gamers to again sort of highlight the sportsmanship in the game and really bring up the level, and that's exactly what they're trying to do as well. So my mission and theirs goes alongside each other really, really well, and it's really cool to be sponsored by Glasshammer. So definitely check those guys out. They have their own tournament as well. I can't remember the date of it off the top of my head now.
It's the beginning of April, I think, or sometime in April. I checked it out today. Maybe on the next podcast we'll give the proper date for it and the location.
I think it's the 27th.
Give you a bit more detail.
27th of April.
Because it sounds something like that. But like I say, we'll give you the proper date. Maybe put it in the comment section below.
Yeah. So I've got that one. That's up in April. Then I've got I'm doing the Clash of Lions team event in February. Going to Belgium to play in another team tournament with Glasshammer at the end of February. Then we've got March, we've got Battlefield Birmingham again. We've got then the weekend after that is the GT finals. So that's like 9th and 10th Battlefield Birmingham in March. 16th, 17th is the Warhammer World finals. And then I'm on a painting class or 3-day painting course the week after that, which I'm really looking forward to by my friend Andy. And then I'm on the 30th and the 31st, I'm doing an ITC style mission up at Element Games. So literally March is Warhammer month. So that's pretty much what we're looking like. Then I'm going to the LGT again in September. There's another event I'm doing at Element Games in May. Fair few, I'd say.
Yeah, plenty to get your teeth into.
Yeah.
Go and terrorise a few people with some horrible Deathwatch lists.
Yeah, and I think that's like my goal really for 2019 is I would love to make the England training team, the England ETC team, and go to Croatia as one of the team players. So I'm really, that's one of my aspirations. So I kind of need to do as well as I can in all of the tournaments prior. Then what I want to try and do is, it is my goal to get to the LVO next year in 2020.
So to do that, you'll need to go to some ITC events and get some to rank there, get some ITC points.
Yeah.
So you stand a chance of being at the top table when you get over there.
Yeah, I think
I take it.
Yeah, definitely. So the ITC basically is the independent tournament circuit, I think. I could have got that name wrong as well. However, it is an American-based company from Frontline Gaming, and a gentleman called Reese kind of runs that, and it is absolutely superb. He's come up with his own custom mission pack, which is really cool. It's very much about progressive scoring. And over on my YouTube channel, Vanguard Tactics, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing an introduction to the ITC missions. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down all of the missions. I'm going to break down how you build a list for it. I'm going to break down the primary targets, the secondary mission pack, the tertiary, so how do you score in the game, what sort of list and units that are really good in it, working around the terrain because they operate slightly differently. So I'm going to do, I think at the moment I'm going to do about a 6-part video series to build up to it, and then obviously we'll just be practicing lots of battle reports and stuff, game highlights. And if you haven't watched one of my videos yet, what we do on our battle reports, by the way, the first episode was all about my sort of time at the GT at Heat 3, and I go over my list, I go over all my opponents that I play, I go over the unfortunate event of being slow played and how I handled that event. So that might be quite interesting to listen to. And then episode 2 that came out literally last week was me versus Yunari. I played against another ETC Canada player, Tom Layton, and he used his Yunari, and basically I do battle highlights. So I do an intro to the video, we talk about what's going to happen, we then discuss the lists, we then go over, I show you turn by turn the highlights, and then also we wrap it up with some things to take away from that video, some top tips, and also we go over what went well, biggest mistakes, and all that kind of stuff. So I want these battle reports to be a really good place of learning. So I think bringing in some ITC battle reports is going to be wicked, because I'm going to learn so much. In some of the comments in the community that started to build on that YouTube channel is amazing. Like, I've literally been inundated with comments, emails, Patreon messages. It's just kind of gone like wildfire, really. And I just want to say thank you so much for everyone that has took the time to get in touch and leave a comment and things, because it really makes everything that I do worthwhile.
I think that, it's fantastic, and I know we've discussed this this week, because you've shared with me quite a bit of the feedback that's come through, and one of the things that we would ask people for is that give us your feedback, tell us what you want.
Yep.
The one thing that we're looking to achieve is a more succinct battle report. So there are other guys that are putting out fantastic 3-hour long battle reports, which if you you've got a new orc army, you're going to be doing a lot of painting. They're great to sit and watch on your iPad or whatever whilst you're painting away. But we're looking to have maybe a shorter, more succinct battle report with some technical or tactical feedback on each one, showing exactly where things could be done better or things were done well or things like this. And the content, what people want to see, how they want to see it. Get in touch, let us know, and then we can tailor the things that we do, specifically to that. Without any feedback from people on what they want, we can't really understand what we can deliver to give people the best experience.
That's it. And I think even a comment on YouTube, I'm making a real point at the moment to reply to absolutely everyone, because I really appreciate all the comments, and it does really help drive the content that we put out. And obviously with your help, Jack and Dan's help probably in the future, and anyone else that would like to help what we're trying to do in our mission, it's only going to get better. At the end of the day, we want to build a community of like-minded people, people that are interested in playing competitively, but not being... I think there's such fears around, are you going to play some sort of idiot or, I don't want to swear, but do you know what I mean? Some sort of... you're going to have some sort of unpleasurable experience where everyone just cares about winning. And you might play one of those people now and again, but they're very, very few and far between, and you could get that in anything that you do in life. So, but I would say on the whole, we just want to raise the game. We want to teach people how to become a better player, and through our battle reports, that is how we're going to do it. The recent video that I filmed of you and Jack, at the end, didn't I ask you both, what did you think you could have done better?
Absolutely. Yeah, that process of questioning, what you did well, what you could have done better, is essential to try and become a better player, to rise up those rankings at your next tournament.
That's it. So if you're, I think this podcast and the battle reports are going to be great to help people either feel more comfortable about entering a tournament. And obviously on my Patreon page, I help people with lists as well. So if that's something you're interested in, having a more competitive list, then, do head over to the old Patreon page. I send out emails going over different types of tactics around the game. So one of the things that I gave away to all my Patreon or Patreons, should I say, is a document. I think it's about 6 pages long, PDF document on how to screen with 34 models. So basically, how do you screen units out? So how do you stop units from, and what I mean by that is, how do you stop units from charging you turn 1, turn 2? How do you stop, and prevent deep strikes from happening that really hit your valuable units? So basically, how do you use infantry to support your game, to grab objectives for you, the do's and don'ts? I give you maps, I show you positioning on where you should deploy. I even put on the ranges and measurements so you can see exactly when you're on the table how you measure it all out. I've done it to scale. So this is the sort of stuff I think is going to really help drive the community to become better players.
I agree. I think that's fantastic content. I think that having seen it, the stuff you've produced, I think that's going to be helpful to anybody, whatever standard you're playing at.
Yeah, and the next one I'm going to be writing, which again will be on the Patreon thing, is deployment. So I've literally started to draft out that chapter of deployment. So all things, what do you need to think about, threat ranges. I cover... literally if you go first, if you go second, in terms of deployment, what your valuable units are, what they can do, what they can't do, what you need to do in order to score from points from the mission, where you need to place things, at what points, and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I'm covering next, and that'll be out next month. Great.
I've got one final question which I'd like to ask. Maybe this is a little light-hearted, and I'm going to answer it myself first. So I've got 2 points. My question is, what is in your wish list for Warhammer 40,000 in 2019? So I'm going to start with 2 points that I have in my wish list.
Yeah.
The first one is no points increase for Talos at all in 2019. Or grotesques, please. I think they are fine as they are.
Yeah.
Or disintegrator cannons, or just Drakari as a whole. Just we're okay over here. Everything's fine. And my second is, I need to credit the person that I saw say this the other day, and as soon as they said it, I thought yes, and it's Adam from Tabletop Minions, and it is a new Space Marine game for the PlayStation, because I absolutely love the last one. I think it was on the PS3, and it's the only reason I still own my PS3, so that I can go back to it and play it on occasion. So Games Workshop, if you're listening, that's Drakari. They're good, and like a AAA rated studio making a fantastic new PlayStation Xbox game, but like based on the Space Marine, the one that came out before us, or a different story. Those are my wish lists for 2019. If they both come true, I'll be here in a year's time, a happy man. What about you, mate?
I am hoping to see less soup. I want to see more pure codex on the competitive scene. So what I would like to see is not necessarily nerfs to soup. I think you can't get around that, they're going to be played. But what I would like to see is a lot more benefits and buffs for playing a single faction as an army. And I think that would be really cool, because and I've been guilty of this in the past. I've ran like a Ynnari list. I've got like a Beltan Sorcerer. I've got a Samhain Autarch. I've got an Alatok Ranger squad. I've got an Ulthwé Guardian squad. So all different craft worlds in the same list. The only thing you don't get is each individual ability, but what you do get is access to every single stratagem, every single relic, every single warlord trait, or whatever that you need when you need it. And it just makes the game difficult, because you don't know what's what in terms of if everything's been painted the same or same colour. So that's what I would like to see. I'd like to see less of that, basically. I don't want to see a White Scars Smash Captain with in the same battalion as 3 squads of, I don't know, Black Templar scouts. Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
sure. So you would say you're looking for not a nerf to soup, but maybe more advantages for a mono codex armies. So you're seeing maybe a little bit more balance in the meta coming forward in the next 12 months or so.
Yeah, or even if it was, I don't know, maybe a slight nerf wouldn't hurt. Even if it's a case of you can only use command or stratagems from your warlord's detachment or faction or whatever, right? So let's say you're taking Ultramarines. If you had Blood Angels, you wouldn't be able to use their stratagems, perhaps. I don't know. Yeah, something would be good. I'd love to see that. I'd really love to see... what would I love to see model-wise? I would love to see new Eldar Aspect Warriors. Plastic.
Yeah.
I'd really like to see that, yeah. And I would also really like to see I'd like to see some more Primarchs in the game, actually. I think they're pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're a little chaos heavy on Primarchs at the minute, aren't we? With
I'd love to see a new Sanguinius model.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that, the Blood Angels one. I don't think you'd ever get rules in 40k, obviously, but they could reincarnate him or something. Who knows?
You never know.
If Gulliman can come back, why not?
Yeah, I think the Blood Angels have had plenty of love recently. I think it's over to the Space Wolves to see the return of Lehman Russ. That'll be the one that all those Space Wolves players are looking for, myself included.
Yeah. Oh, I've got so many wishes, like Terminators. I want Terminators to be good again.
We'll have to wait and see, I suppose, what happens at the next FAQ.
Yeah, or another new Space Marine Codex, perhaps.
Perhaps, yeah. We've seen the one this week come out with in White Dwarf. We've seen the Crimson Fist one.
Was that out this week? Was it?
Yeah, I think the pre-order is. I think it's we're the second today, aren't we? So I think it's pre-order comes out on the Friday, I believe.
Yeah, nice, mate. Well, look, is there anything else you want to go over?
No, I think that we're good.
Well, guys, if you want to find out more about Vanguard Tactics, you want to get on the email list, you want to subscribe and get more content, then the best thing to do is head over to www.vanguardtactics.com. As soon as you come to that lovely black and green page, you'll be hit with a pop-up which basically says, pop your email address in here. I'm going to send you the list that I used at the GT. Obviously, it's a little bit old now because of chapter approved, but you still get the main concept of it. It's just 1600 points rather than 1750. And also I give away my cheat sheet that I used for my knight. So it basically, depending on who you fight, it will tell you what warlord trait to take, what relic to take. So you make sure you take the perfect relic and warlord trait for your matchup, that whoever you're fighting. And then also what I do as well is just send you some other bits and bobs about screening and some just general advice. And I'm going to basically send out an email every single week with what I'm thinking. And there's links to everything else there. The Vanguard Tactics YouTube channel, the Patreon page if you want even more premium content. And it's on that email. If you want to give feedback that's about the podcast, or you've got a question for the show, then do send that over via email. But I do want to give a huge shout out to my first Black Shield Patreon, which is Ian Pitkin. So Ian, thank you so much for subscribing to be a Black Shield on the old Patreon page. So that is, to become a Black Shield is the most highest level Patreon subscription that I have on my page. So in one of those things is that you get a shout out on the podcast, and I'll also interview you and write lists for you as well. So I'm going to interview every Black Shield that I have on Vanguard Tactics, and I want to get you on the show, and we can go over kind of what you got in, how you got into the hobby, what army you play. We can talk about your list, and then the other thing is that I'll do for you is write you a custom list as well. So if you're interested in that, there is only 30 Black Shield spaces. So check it out. But finally, Mark, thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you also to Glasshammer Gaming for sponsoring this, or sponsoring myself as a player, and also the podcast. So thank you much to those guys. Go check those out. Glasshammer Gaming. They're on Twitch. They stream lots of games. So again, if you want to see some more highly competitive battle reports, you can go check them out on YouTube or Twitch or whatever it might be. So guys, I hope you have a great evening, day, whatever time you're listening to this, and we'll see you perhaps next week. And next week's episode, what we're going to do, Mark? What do you think we should cover?
Well, I think you've touched on it. So maybe soup is the topic. When you were talking about it, I thought there was a podcast worth of discussion about it.
Cool.
Maybe we'll bring in one of the other guys as well.
Yeah. So we can talk about list development, list design, and also how to compete against soup lists. So I think that'll be next week's show. Guys, until then, see you later.